All right, I will call the meeting to order at 7 o'clock. That went down 2 minutes fast.
One minute
Sure, I gotta be smart.
Please stand and let's pay your respect to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please note the roll.
Noted.
Commissioner Berger is excused absence. I'll take a motion to approve the agenda.
I make a motion that we approve the agenda for tonight, Thursday night, January 6, 2022.
Any support?
I'll support.
Moved by Knowles, supported by Hunwick. Any discussions on the agenda? Seeing none, all in favor of the agenda as presented indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda is approved. We'll move on to item 5, which is approval of the minutes. I'll entertain a motion for approval of minutes.
I make a motion that to approve the Planning Commission regular meeting minutes of 12/16/2021.
Support.
I have a motion by Knowles, supported by Ross. Any discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes from December 16, 2021 have been approved. Anyone here from public willing to make a comment for anything not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on. Commissioner comments. Commissioner Turner? Oh, yes.
I know I'm not a commissioner, but I would like to state something, just explanation-wise because we have new people on the board. One thing is a motion's not supported, it's seconded, because using the word support indicates that you support the motion and you don't have to support a motion. And the only other thing is, and I'll say it now while there's nobody here, all comments from the audience are addressed to the chair, and all comments from the commission should be addressed to the chair. He's the conduit for communication between people in the audience and people on the board. So you don't engage in back and forth with somebody in the audience. Your question goes to the chair. That's it.
All right, thank you very much. All right. Commissioner Turner, any comments?
Just pleasure to be here.
Great to have you. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Commissioner Bailey?
No, just I'll kind of back up what she just said about that. And if there's any questions,
You're going to be the parliamentarian? Is that what you're saying?
I've studied it extensively, so.
Right. Commissioner Hunwick?
I have no comments.
Commissioner Holt?
I have no comments.
Commissioner Ross?
I have no comment.
And I also have no comments today. So with that, we're going to move on to new business, which is election of officers. So first up will be the chairperson. Do I have entertain any motions to nominate someone for chair?
In Mr. Berger's absence, he sent us a letter that he'd like to have read into the minutes. Would you mind if I read that now?
I'm just wondering, based on that content, is now the time? Because I don't think he references anything about elections to the chair.
You are correct.
So we'll wait until we get down
Thank you.
to the committee assignments under unfinished business. So I'll entertain a motion to recommend someone for chair.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to recommend Tom Berger to be the chair for the Planning Commission for 2022.
We have a nomination for Commissioner Berger as chair. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a nomination and a second. Any other candidates or nominations for chair? Seeing none, and I did have earlier conversations with Commissioner Berger, and he is willing to accept that nomination. So since there is only one individual being nominated for this position, per our bylaws, it will be put in the record as a unanimous consent. So we do not need to vote on it. Okay. So congratulations, Mr. Berger. Moving on to vice chair. Do we have any nominations for vice chair?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a nomination for vice chair. I'd like to nominate Mike Spitz for vice chair for the Planning Commission for 2022.
And we have a nomination. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
So we have a nomination and a second, and thank you. I will accept that nomination. Any other nominations for vice chair? Seeing none, since we only have one candidate, we will put into the record unanimous consent of vice chair. So thank you, I appreciate it. Next, we have secretary. Do we have any nominations for secretary?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a nomination for secretary.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to nominate Ed Hunwick for secretary for the planning commission, Oxford Township, for 2022.
We have a nomination. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a nomination and a second. Commissioner Hunwick, do you accept the nomination?
I accept.
Okay, so we have a nomination, a second, and an acceptance of the nomination. Do we have any other candidates for secretary? Seeing none, congratulations. We'll put in the record a unanimous consent for Mr. Hunwick as secretary. Thank you all. That is it for new business. So with new business, we'll move on to unfinished business. 9A, which is committee assignments, zoning board of appeals liaison. Now you probably should word that.
Mr. Chair, I'd like permission to read a letter from Mr. Berger.
Commissioner Knoll.
The main topic of discussion would be appointments to the various committees. I'm recommending, Mr. Berger is recommending Ashley to the Economic Development Committee with Ed and Mike. And I would like to see Robert Turner sit in on the ORC committee as the alternate with myself, John, and Ed. He suggests to keep the gravel committee as currently is and place Corey Bailey as representative for the PC to the Zoning Board of Appeals. Following up with John as our PC member on the Township Board. And we'd like to have this put in the
Into the record. Okay, thank you. So let's take these one step at a time. Let's start with the Economic Development Committee of the Planning Commission. Do we have any other discussion or recommendations for volunteers of individuals that would like to be on that committee?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to nominate three people.
Please.
I'd like to nominate Ashley Ross, Ed Hunwick, Mike Spiz.
All right, so we have, I'm going to take that as a motion. Motion
Yes.
for nomination.
Motion
Do we have
for
a second
nomination.
to nominate those three individuals for Economic Development Committee of the Planning Commission? So we have a motion by Knoll, the second by Bailey. Any further discussions, comments, questions, concerns relative to those three nominations?
You gonna chair it?
That, once we meet, we'll elect at that time, we're going to get a chair.
Nice start.
Yeah, thank you. So if no additional discussion, I do. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed? All right, Economic Development Committee has been set. Thank you very much. Move on to the Gravel Inspection Subcommittee of the Township Board.
That one you don't really have to do because it has to have the planning commission chair and you just made Berger the chair, so.
Perfect, good call.
He's on.
Appreciate that. So that one is set. We don't need to do any additional actions. He was practicing. Moving on to the Ordinance Review Committee of the Planning Commission. Any recommendations,
Mr. Chair, I'd like to
nominations?
make some recommendations, please.
Commissioner Knoll.
I'd like to nominate Tom Berger, Ed Hunwick, and John Knoll to that.
All right, do I have a second of that motion?
I'll second it. Whoever.
We have a motion by Knoll, a second by Turner. We've got to get him on the record.
Yeah, it's good.
Get the new people there. Credit. So
Did you want to refer to Mr. Berger's memo as seating Mr. Turner as an alternate on the ORC? Because formerly Ms. Knopf was the alternate.
Okay, so do you want to add that to your motion?
I will add that to my motion. I thought we were going to get care of the nominees and go about the alternate, but I'd like to add to that motion Mr. Turner as an alternate to the ORC.
All right, will you, Mr. Turner, would you amend your support? Or yours? Second, sorry, I'll get used to that eventually. So any other discussion, comments relative to that motion? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations. Moving on to the PUD committee. Since the PC chair sits on that, which would be Mr. Berger, we just need to have one representative from the Planning Commission to also sit on that. Any motions, recommendations, nominations?
Excuse me.
I will say it's not one that meets very often. I can't remember the last time it met.
We had one.
True.
I'd like to make a motion that we nominate Ed Hunwick for that position.
For what position?
The PC rep on the PUD committee.
All right.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I don't know if I can second on the striking distance. I'll second.
All right, we have a motion by No, a second by Bailey to appoint Commissioner Hunwick to the PUD committee of the Township Board. Any other additional nominations or discussion comments? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Moving on to zoning board of appeals. You're going to nominate one individual to sit.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to nominate Mr. Bailey, first name Corey, to the zoning board of appeals as a PC representative.
So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All right. A motion by Noel, the support, or a second by Hunwick. Any other additional discussion, nominations, recommendations for ZBA? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay. Finishes it for 9A. No additional discussions on committee assignments or zoning board of appeals liaison. So with that, we'll move on to 9B, which is the update to the commission bylaws. Zach, are you willing to come up and
I will do my best.
open up?
Yep. So in your packet, there are two versions, one with red line and one that's a clear copy. So if there's a bunch of red in it, that's the red line. The main reason for the changes are it's sat for, I think since 2013, it hasn't really been touched. Most of the changes are housekeeping and for consistency with state law. So for example, the Zoning Enabling Act, the Planning Enabling Act calls it bylaws for Planning Commission, it calls it rules and procedure for ZBA, chair for Planning Commission, chairperson for ZBA. I don't know, they weren't talking to each other when they were drafting the code, but so it's to make it consistent. Really the main substantive change is in the order of business, item 3.8. The one that was noted by Ms. Lotan was bills. Those are done by the Township Board, not by the Planning Commission, so those have been stricken. And then one of the things that I recommend, this is kind of one of my Johnny Appleseed things, is the proposed new item number 5, conflicts of interest ex parte contact. So the idea is once the agenda has been approved, the body takes a moment to look around and say, does anyone have a conflict of interest with any of the items on the agenda? Or have you had conversation outside of the meeting with anyone involved in the petition? 99% of the time, it's going to be a blank space, but it's very good for the public and for the members of the body to kind of take that pause and show that you're doing that. One other thing that I want to bring up as a change, just a typo, section 3.3, quorum B. As it's currently in your packet, it says, if a quorum is not present, the only action that can be taken is to adjourn. No other action may be taken in the absences of a quorum. It should just be absence. No.
Yes.
S. Again, mostly just housekeeping changes for consistency internal to the document and with other language that's floating about in the planning and zoning world.
Okay. Thank you. Comments from commissioners? Thoughts, comments? Commissioner Mill?
So if we adopt this, going to the agenda, item 5, conflicts of interest, we'll discuss that at every meeting?
Yep.
That'll be just a new standard?
Yep.
Okay.
And it says 99% of the time
I understand.
there's crickets, but it's good pause.
Any comments from commissioners at this point? I do have a couple. Go ahead.
Was the attorney, did he review all the changes?
Yep. And the response we got was that they had no concerns with what was written here, with the proposed changes.
Anybody else? I guess with the addition of the conflict of interest, who else or any other communities are using that or it's been added? Because it's the first time I've ever seen it.
Yeah.
So I'm intrigued, but also wondering is it truly necessary?
Yeah, the ones that I'm aware of, City of Dexter does this. I know that because I am on city council there and I brought it there, so all our bodies now have it. Dexter Township, again, where Johnny Appleseed did this, they were very interested in the very active conflict of interest element. And their section for conflict of interest is like 2 pages. They whacked it out. They actually have more in detail version where for each agenda item, they have it there. So it's introduction and then conflict of interest, ex parte contact. So it's very finely detailed. I think it's more than what's necessary here. I'm not familiar with other communities in the area that have done it because I just haven't had time to research local bylaws.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Both the Village of Lake Orion Planning Commission and Auburn Hills Planning Commission it doesn't have its formal agenda item, but they do make that statement, and particularly Lake Orion, because right now they have a planning commissioner that is involved in doing the development. So he has to step down.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then bills, I don't have an issue with. The only other point I'd like to open up for discussion with commissioners, and it's might be more something that I am just used to, but with the commissioner comments being before everything happens, 9 times out of 10, as we go around, nobody has any comments. But at the end, after we discuss items, sometimes you might be reminded of something or want to expand on something at the very end. So I would be open or recommend either moving item 8 down farther or adding an additional section for additional comments on the backside. Because I know a lot of the other municipalities in Hamilton County, we have 2 public comments. And so the commissioner's comments, they also have something at the very end for county commissioners.
Township board is at the end also.
That's a good call.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
I think I'd like to support that if you'd like to make that a motion.
Would you support adding a second or moving item 8 to the backside?
I would suggest we move item 8 to the backside,
I would agree.
unless there's any other comments from the other board members.
So just for open discussion purposes, if we move 8 down, would you like to see it after new business, after communications, or after planner engineering reports? You don't want to see that after adjournment, I'm assuming. Thoughts?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to suggest we have it in between after the planner engineering reports and then go into adjournment.
Okay.
Yeah, in between those.
So replace
Yes.
where Bill's was with number 8. I would be open for
If
that.
other commissioners,
I would agree.
So no objections?
Makes sense.
So that would be 3.8. Any other thoughts, comments, questions about the red line that's in front of us? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'd like to entertain a motion, but I'd like to ask for clarification. Zach, since we edited your draft 12/30/2021, in a motion, how do I need to say that tonight's date? Or how would you suggest we do that to keep our continuity correct?
I'd say the draft 12:30 as presented tonight with the amendments.
Okay. Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion, sir.
Commissioner Knoll.
I'd like to adopt the Charter Township of Oxford, Michigan Planning Commission bylaws as drafted 12/30/2021 with the addition of tonight's recommendation of moving the commissioner's comments to before the adjournment, and tonight's date is January 6, 2022.
Do you also want to pick up the recommended adjustment on section 3.3?
On the S?
Yes.
On the spelling, yes, I would like to add 3.3,
B.
item B, and take the S off of absence.
So we have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
There's a motion by Knowles, supported by Hunwick.
I'll second.
Seconded by Hunwick, thank you for that. To adopt the bylaws as indicated in the markup in our packet from 12/30/2021 with 2 additional amendments, section 3.8, moving the commissioner comments down, and then section 3.3B to remove the S. So any additional comments, thoughts on that? Should we do a roll call on this since it is bylaws?
If you don't.
Roll call, please.
Jesus.
You gonna do that or do you want me to do it?
Oh, you can do it, that's fine.
Bailey,
Yes.
Hunwick,
Yes.
Nold,
Yes.
hold on a second, I'm spelling. Turner,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Spiz.
Yes,
Motion passed.
motion passes. Great, thank you. Thank you for all your hard work on that side.
Good job, guys.
Moving on to item 10, since we have no additional unfinished business. Communications and/or committee reports. Anything from the Economic Development Committee? We haven't met, so nothing new to report. Anything new from the Ordinance Review Committee?
Well,
Yes, me?
we did meet this afternoon.
Anything to report?
We just reviewed the public,
I can give a stab at it if you'd like.
Please,
I can give a stab at it if you like.
okay, please come up to the podium.
public
You've got your
institutional,
CD. Yeah, so a big thing we've been working on is the zoning map amendment. It's zoning map maintenance. So over the years, properties change and how they're used doesn't match how they're zoned. For example, a lot of the subdivisions, the recreation areas are supposed to be zoned recreation and they're not. This property is on R1A. The master plan calls for it to be public institutional. So we're wrapping up work on the zoning map amendments. There's a neighborhood that's zoned multiple family, but it's single family houses, which causes weird things for setbacks. So it's kind of a big deal. We don't think it's been done in a very long time. With that, we're also developing a new zoning district, public institutional, although the name is kind of in flux. That may end up just being institutional, recommended in the master plan. That's getting wrapped up. It's going to be ready here maybe for the 27th even. The other thing we're working on is a priorities list for 2022, because our previous list, we've just about banged out everything except for signs. There's a lawsuit with the city of Troy and a billboard company that's wending its way through court with appeals and the attorneys. Even though we got really close to having something ready for this body, they said, let's just sit this out and see what happens. That was a year and 3 months ago. So we're still waiting on that, but we're working on a list of things to do. I believe there's been talk, probably not this year, but years in the future, of having a joint meeting with the Township Board, the ZBA, and the Planning Commission to kind of focus on areas to look at, but this is a tough year with COVID. Did I get all the things? Oh, and also Little Caesars was closed today, so it was not hot already.
Thank you, we heard that earlier before we went.
There was some anger involved.
They're definitely.
Thank you, Zach. Any questions for the Ordinance Review Committee? Great, thank you. All right, planner report. Anything additional, Zach?
Nothing new. One thing of interest, just did a lot of foundation surveys for the enclaves. They're trucking along, so there are going to be people probably living in there by this fall. So housing is still going up. And we issued our first permit last week for the Manors of Westlake, just up the road here.
Okay, good.
So there's dirt turning.
Good. Engineer Sharp, anything to report?
Sure, I can't go on. I can't say anything. Nothing. I just want to welcome Ashley and Bob. I'm Jim Sharp. I'm the Township's engineer. I don't think we've officially, really met, but I'm going to give you my business card right here. You'll see some of our reports come out when we're reviewing site plans and things like that. I live in the community as well, so I'm out and about quite a bit. And so always just feel free to email me or call me if you have any questions about the reports or about anything. I think everybody else here does. I don't know if Corey's really reached maybe once or twice, but these other guys, they call me quite frequently. So just feel free to do that at any
Come
time.
on, speed dial. Yep.
Speed dial.
Speed
I don't
dial.
know about that.
All right,
That's all I have.
thank you, Engineer
Everything
Sharp.
else is quiet in the neighborhood.
If nothing else, I've met my commitment. I will call us adjourned at 7:26.